The ANC wants to broaden the Reserve Bank's mandate so that it plays a bigger role in supporting the economy, a change that may require a constitutional amendment that it cannot effect on its own. Duma Gqubule is the founding director at the Centre for Economic Development and Transformation and joins us for more on this. Good evening, good afternoon to you, Duma, and welcome to the program. This call is not new from the ANC. What does a broader mandate mean exactly for the South African Reserve Bank?
What it means is that the Reserve Bank mustn't just look at inflation, it must look at other issues in other countries, for example, in Asia, in the other ones. They look at the exchange rate, they look at the GDP growth, they look at employment. And some countries, like the US, have got an explicit, what they call a dual mandate, to look at growth and employment. Now, we are the country with the one of the highest unemployment rates in the world. I think it's insane that our Reserve Bank doesn't have a mandate that looks into employment. In fact, there is no institution in South Africa that should not be having, public institution, a mandate that is related to creating jobs and growing the economy. Yeah.
Well, go into the details around, how that is accomplished and exactly what can be unlocked in the economy. The Reserve Bank has said that obstacles to bolstering economic growth fall outside of the scope of monetary policy. Do you read this as a signal of agreement that their mandate be broadened?
No. So the Reserve Bank only wants, like throughout the pandemic, the Reserve Bank governor only talked about inflation. I was watching all his speeches. If you look at the other countries in the world, the central banks in the US, the Eurozone, Japan and the UK, they funded the government response to the pandemic. $10 trillion that they put, the things that they were doing were unprecedented. In the US, they were bailing out municipalities that were not coping because of the pandemic. In China, they were giving money to hospitals to be able to respond to the pandemic. So the Reserve Bank can't be, insulated from playing a role in economic development. I think it's absurd, and practically the Reserve Bank can finance economic development. It can finance our development finance institutions. It can capitalize them to give loans to people. It can finance government spending. In the pandemic, 92% of the UK's response of £350 billion was financed by the Bank of England. And in the US, according to my calculations, it was just under half, their COVID response, And all the countries, when the Reserve Bank has to have a wider role in society, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
And who would influence their decision-making, in this format that you describe?
Well, I believe that, we can't have the Reserve Bank Monetary Policy Committee, a group of technocrats who are unaccountable. We have to broaden the Monetary Policy Committee to, like in the UK, to have people from outside the Reserve Bank. You have to have people from civil society who are going to have their way, because we've got like kind of a tunnel view at the Reserve Bank as to how things should be done. We must hear people who don't feel the pain of ordinary South Africans. We must have people on that Monetary Policy Committee who feel the pain of ordinary South Africans when they make those decisions about what to do about interest rates, about growing the economy and so on. Yeah.
Let's dive deeper into it, Duma, and it's no secret that you're a champion of moves to rethink the SABC mandate and independence. You've been interviewed on the SABC before saying that it should be nationalized. Let's go into some of the granular practical benefits that are locked inside broadening the mandates and also by consequence of that, increasing the efficiency and the speed at which the SABC is able to make decisions.
Yes. Let's just take the situation now. We're in an unprecedented economic crisis. Our GDP per person has not grown for 16 years from 2006 to 2021. We've got this unprecedented unemployment rate of 43%. Surely the Reserve Bank must have a role in solving that problem. I just want to simplify it. Like, why can't the Reserve Bank have a role? The Reserve Bank creates money, create money for productive purposes to grow our economy as well. Yeah.
If the benefits are so manifest, so apparent, Why does it seem, that we go in the other direction and we want to preserve the configuration of the Reserve Bank as it is? Controversially, I think it was in 2017 when the Public Protector had also, made utterances or expressed the direction in which the Reserve Bank should go in terms of broadening its mandate. Of course, there was a court decision that put paid to any of those plans and ideas. Why do you think, our response to it has been in this way?
I don't understand, Iman, because like New Zealand has got a dual mandate and many other central banks which don't formally have dual mandates, they actually behave like they consider not just the inflation rate, they look at the exchange rate. I mean, we saw in Japan recently, they take a view on the exchange rate, they take views on broader issues in society. The whole issue in the Western countries, in central banks, is what is their role in climate change? So how can they accelerate climate change? So central banks the world over are embracing broader mandates that go beyond just setting interest rates. That is something from the last century. And in the 21st, now this century, reserve central banks are taking on broader mandates here.
So you see this as innovation. It will make the Reserve Bank far more tactile and responsive. But the only way, Duma, that it could ever become manifest depends on powers outside. This is from the ANC's perspective then, a partnership of votes in Parliament. It needs that two-thirds majority, which it doesn't have. It also necessitates changes to the Reserve Bank Act, which has so far been unsuccessful. So, can it be done?
Iman, I'm not the lawyer, but like when they introduced the inflation targeting in 1999 as the framework, it didn't require a change of legislation. So, and then in 2010, the finance minister gave a letter to Jill Marcus saying that, this is how we want you to respond to the economic crisis, And so I don't know, like, whether it requires a constitutional change. Some of my friends that I've been discussing this about feel that it doesn't need a constitutional change, because if you look at the Constitution, what the Reserve Bank has to do, it's so vaguely worded, almost it can mean anything to anyone. So maybe the government can say this is what it means to us, and change the meaning of that constitutional mandate here.
Duma, it's always going to be a fascinating discussion. Of course, we'll see how it develops for, the benefit of the country, as you say, and being keys to unlocking some very important and urgent economic benefits for the country. Thank you for talking to us today, Duma Gqubule, who is the founding director at the Centre for Economic Development and Transformation.